I've been hit or miss on that. Y'all, this software is just not. You should have audio now. Okay, good morning. It's Friday. There we go. So I said Waller's drew first blood, and then I was just saying good morning to people. Cindy, good morning. Megan, Trish, thanks for joining us this morning. I see Fish and Golf's with us this morning. Good morning. Y'all, let me know if the audio is turned back on now, because it was not working a second ago. And I think I got it, but I can't tell until one of y'all says something. So, there we go. Okay, good. So, this is Friday. This is the third weekend in October. I always forget if it's the second or third. I know that this weekend is the Highland Games. So that's a big deal for me and my family. We're gonna be at the Stone Mountain Highland Games all weekend, and it's mostly just men in skirts drinking scotch, talking politics, and throwing telephone poles for fun. So we'll be out at the Highland Games this weekend, and we're gonna have a big old time. Last year when we went to the Highland Games, there was this wonderful moment where the young ladies of Clan McLaren, including all three of my daughters and several others, went to the kids recreation area where they've got, like miniature caber toss and miniature sheaf chuck and all that. And they had a face painting booth set up. And my girls got over there. There were about 6 or 7 of the McLaren girls that got over there to get their faces painted, and there was nobody manning the face painting booth. So the girls just, all the stuff was there. Somebody left all the face paint behind, and even a bucket of money for people to leave donations in. I hate to say it, I forget who was running the face painting booth, but our girls just stepped in and took it over and picked up all the paints and started painting faces and directing people to put money in the bucket. And they just ran the booth. They just took over and ran it for a couple of hours. It was hilarious. I did not even know this was going on until they had already been at it for a little over an hour. So we'll see what happens this year. And that should teach somebody an important lesson about leaving their tools out, right? So this morning, unfortunately, I couldn't get anybody. I couldn't get Mario or Cameron on this morning. Boys got to work. I get it. I understand, bitches. But we have a story that I want to cover, and right off the rip, I want to say I reached out to the Spencers And at first blush, I wanted to try and get Mr. Aaron Spencer, who this story is about. I wanted to get him on and do an interview, and then I thought better of it. I thought, no, I don't want to see this guy talk about his story at all for a while, because I would hate for him before he has his day in court to go on and do an interview about what happened and accidentally say something that can be used against him. So let me go ahead and bring up the story, and we'll cover this. Arkansas father arrested for allegedly killing daughter's stalker, 67, after finding him with the teen. Now, as you'll see as we get into the story, that headline is a little too generous to the stalker. Okay? It makes it sound like the two of them were just found together. And that's not what happened. So let's read the story. An Arkansas father was arrested for allegedly shooting and killing his underage daughter's reported stalker, whom he found with her after she went missing on Tuesday. Okay. So it's not like he just came upon the two of them together hanging out and there was no. This 67-year-old man apparently kidnapped this 14-year-old girl. I have a 14-year-old daughter. Oh my God. Okay. There is a temptation in a story like this to start talking about, I beat the hell out of him, I'd hurt him, I'd drag it out, I'd make him suffer. Right. No. I am not a fan of capital punishment. And let me be very clear on what I mean by this. Punishment, like when you tell your privates to do push-ups or you take your kid's iPad away, is the intentional application of negative consequences to correct bad behavior. Okay? You punish a child, you punish a soldier, right? You punish a lawyer, right? Sanctions, deprivation, right? No TV for a week. Do push-ups, right? No allowance this week, right? Sanctions for malicious prosecution, fines for an expired tag. That's punishment. The point to a punishment is to correct a behavior so that the offender goes on and does better. When you start talking about the sorts of crimes, rapes, murders, kidnappings, serious malicious will of evil crime, I am not interested in what the criminal learns. I believe in capital precaution. Now, there's a whole argument about whether or not you can trust the government with that authority, and I hear you, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the moral certitude that dead bad people don't do bad things. Because, unfortunately, I can offer you this guarantee that if the kidnapping rapist stalker in this story had survived the encounter with the poor 14-year-old child's father, then he would not have been exterminated by the state. So there is a good argument to be made politically, legally, against the death penalty being controlled by the government, and that is that they are reticent to use it where the application is reasonable, and we have seen compelling evidence that the government will play favorites and seek the death penalty in cases where it is politically convenient, right? You can look at cases like Derek Chauvin, where the judge refused to allow the case to be, he refused the motion for change of venue. The judge in that case citing that there is nowhere in this country that this case is not so well known that Derek Chauvin can get a fair trial. Now, obviously, the law is very clear on that. If there can be no fair trial, then there can be no trial. That is the law. But of course, Derek Chauvin was a powerful political statement to be made by the terrorist left, and so they had to have it. And so they chose instead to subvert the law and crucify a man against the evidence. So back to the story. Like I said, I did reach out to Aaron Spencer's wife. I reached out to Mrs. Spencer, direct message on Facebook, and I told her, look, I'm going to cover this on Friday. I hope you watch it. I want y'all to know, and if there's anything that you want said or not said, I'll entertain that. Please contact me back. And I made it clear in the message to her, I do not want to actually have either of you on the show to speak about the incident, because I don't want to risk that Aaron says something that could be taken out of context or misconstrued or twisted in any way to hurt his case. Because Aaron Spencer, 36, had reported his 14-year-old daughter missing earlier the same day, and Lonoke County Sheriff's Office deputies were dispatched to his home. But before they arrived, Spencer found his daughter in a vehicle with Michael Fosler, 67, and the confrontation turned deadly, according to the sheriff. Now, that leaves out a lot of important information. So, Aaron Spencer's mugshot at the Lonoke County Detention Center after he allegedly shot and killed Michael Fosler. This was not the family's first encounter with Fosler, against whom they had a no-contact order, according to Spencer's wife, Heather. They already had a no-contact order against this guy. So we're talking about a kidnapper, and probably worse, with whom these people had already had interaction. So this is just insane. The teen's mom alleged in a Facebook post that the older man had stalked and raped their child over the summer, and they feared that he might kill her if given the chance. Now, this right here, he had stalked and raped her previously. This is a repeat offense. So we don't know if he actually got to do anything this time around when he kidnapped the child. But the idea that he would be reticent to have done so beggars belief. The Fosler was arrested in July for internet stalking of a child and sexual assault by a different law enforcement agency and was released on bond. This, I want more information here, because a different law enforcement agency, I'd like to know which law enforcement agency let a child rapist out after less than a year in prison, after less than anything in prison. And this neglects to say whether or not it was over the same attack on the same child, which, if you've spent any time in the prosecution of this kind of criminal, you didn't get to 67 years old and suddenly become a pederast. You didn't suddenly become a child rapist, in your ripe old retirement. Neither parent was aware that Fosler had reinitiated contact with their daughter. When the girl's father found the alleged predator with his daughter, a heated confrontation ensued between the two men before Aaron Spencer allegedly shot and killed Fosler, the sheriff's office said. Now, this does not include anything about how it went down. I can certainly appreciate how a father, given this circumstance, might might just draw a weapon and do the job. I can appreciate what the feeling is there. Yes, I will absolutely spend the rest of my life trying to break out of prison if that's what it takes to secure the safety and security of my family. That's not even a question, right? But this doesn't say anything about what Aaron has claimed so far. It doesn't make any mention of his positing a positive defense, an affirmative defense of self-defense, which I assume is a potential here. You find somebody in the commission of a serious crime, the legal pursuit of which should ruin that man's life, and the expectation that he might do something to try and get away from that or to try and cover up witnesses is reasonably high. So the possibility that this was actually not just a case of a father doing the absolutely morally correct thing, there is a real possibility that there's a legitimate self-defense claim here, and not just a defense of others or just the moral correct action of a father protecting his child. Now, that said, some things we will never know, but we know that the police department afforded this predator privacy that they did not give our family, including posting our home address. I'm deeply offended by the way this was handled by the county sheriff's office, Heather Spencer wrote on Facebook, including posting our home address. We've talked about this before, and I'm going to go ahead and say that the sheriff's department is guilty of this. Doxing is always attempted murder. It cannot be said of a professional security agency or a professional law enforcement office that they do not understand what basic operational security and informational security is. It cannot reasonably be said, or reasonably be expected. Now, if it is the case that you have a law enforcement or security agency that does not understand operational security, then what you have is an incompetent, unprofessional agency. And they should be abolished and disbanded immediately, because their incompetence is a lasting and ongoing threat to all who believe, not all who do, all who believe that they fall under the pure purview of protection of that agency. Because I'll remind you again, Gonzales v. Castle Rock, etc., the police have no duty to protect you. But when they go so far as to publish your home address, it cannot reasonably be expected that the intended outcome is for you to suffer harm. We go, the example I always use is in the George Zimmerman case. You had Spike Lee published what he believed to be Zimmerman's home address. And it is probably the case, we know from how that story unfolded, because the new Black Panthers showed up armed to that address, and it turned out to be the wrong address. It was a little old couple, and the new Black Panthers were denied their murder rampage that they showed up to conduct in the Trayvon Martin case. But the fact is that when you publish personal information on the internet like that without the person's consent, especially in a particular context, but generally, it cannot be said of a reasonable person that they don't expect the worst sort of people to take advantage of that information. Right? Everybody knows where Donald Trump lives because Mar-a-Lago is very famous, right? But if someone were to suddenly publish Kamala Harris's personal residence on X without comment, guaranteed they would be treated like they were conducting a terroristic act. So that conduct by the sheriff's department is absolutely abhorrent. The father was arrested on a preliminary charge of first-degree murder. At the end of the day, our daughter is a victim, and we have a long road of recovery for everyone. We are so thankful for all the calls, messages, and prayers. Aaron has not formally been charged yet. Sheriff John Staley said in a video on Facebook, I absolutely do not support predators. I should hope not. I'm a daddy. I have 3 daughters. I know she's hurting right now, but there's absolutely nobody I would put ahead of our children, their children, my children. So that's heading in the right direction somewhat. I'd like to see a more full-throated defense because, quite frankly, one of the biggest problems we have in this country right now, just people being rude to each other, even just basic lack of manners in this country right now, is because we have become a consequence-averse country. The police exist largely to protect criminals from law-abiding citizens. And you see people, there's a video running around now of this 70-some-year-old multi-millionaire on a bicycle running up on this kid and screaming at him and telling him, you're not going anywhere, I'm calling the police. I mean, just the absolute level of entitlement. That doesn't exist in a world where if you tell somebody to go fuck themselves, you get punched in the mouth. Right? If I had my way, we would have manners and dentists' incomes at an all-time high in order to correct our grotesque malmanner in this country today. Now, this sheriff saying that he's got daughters and he's concerned for the victims, that is a step in the right direction. And then the article ends with a quote from Heather Spencer, who wrote, my husband is a hero, and we are so thankful to have him home with us for now. We want to do everything possible to ensure he can continue to be here to protect us. Okay, so he is out on bond right now. And this is the last thing that I want to talk about here is she originally launched a GoFundMe, but it has since been taken down because the website's terms of service prohibit fundraisers from raising money for the legal defense of anyone charged with a violent crime. That is false. Or, okay, no, I'm not saying that correctly. GoFundMe has a history of looking at conservative or white people and just shutting them down. Now, in all fair, GoFundMe, private company, do what you want to do. GiveSendGo is probably the one that I would use if I had to run a campaign for something like this. But GoFundMe famously during the trucker strike shut down all those fundraising campaigns while the Canadian government was freezing their bank accounts. GoFundMe has also allowed money to be raised for the bail funds of BLM rioters, which were in fact violent criminals, and specifically for violent criminals. They were famously basically bailing out violent criminals all throughout the Summer of Love, and even during the period while the Freedom Convoy was going on in Canada, and GoFundMe was actively shutting down their fundraising accounts. So, stay away from GoFundMe. There are other ways to crowdfund if you need to crowdfund. GoFundMe is essentially a Communist Party weapon against America. GoFundMe is trash, absolute trash. So that said, I hope that everything goes well for Mr. Spencer here. I hope that if he's charged and he finds himself in court, that he gets a friendly jury. And to America, all of you, jury nullification. I've mentioned before, and I read this story years ago, and it's difficult to find now. But there was a case, this woman walked into a police station, stabbed a police officer in front of witnesses with multiple security cameras running. And then she told her story in court. And it was a story of the police officer had abused her, and she told a very compelling story of a victimized woman who was abused by this man, by this police officer. And she was acquitted basically through jury nullification. The jury said, no, he deserved to die, and she deserved to make that happen. So if you happen to find yourself in Arkansas on a jury, and this case comes before you, I highly encourage you to simply say, no, we will not condemn a man for protecting his family. Say it with me. I will not condemn a man for protecting his family. So, now that, here's another one. This story, I want to cover this one kind of briefly because it's just a bizarre story. But I've been pretty hard on cops lately, and not without reason. You know, all throughout the summer of love, we've seen the police, it's especially our federal institutions. So, you know, your big gov cops, your FBI guys. But it cannot be stressed enough that the job of a police officer requires very little education preparation. I'm sure you've all seen fat cops, you know, spilling jelly rolls out of their bullshit body armor. The bar to entry is far too low. And so here we have a story: off-duty Atlanta officer killed in self-defense during reported home break-in. Yeah, that's quite a sentence. This was in Douglasville, Georgia. An Atlanta police officer, investigator Aubrey Horton, was shot and killed early on the morning of October 4th in a Douglas County home after allegedly attempting a break-in. I have a little bit of trouble with that sentence. Okay, it says he was shot in the home after allegedly attempting a break-in. Okay. If he attempted but did not accomplish, because that's what we mean when we say attempted, right? You don't get charged with attempted murder if there's a body on the floor. You get charged with murder. If he was shot in the home, I think we're past attempted. If it's 5 o'clock in the morning, 0500, dark 30, and the homeowner says that this person was not welcome in my home, then I think we've pretty much covered the allegedly too. So what we have here does not sound like an alleged attempted break-in. What we have here sounds like a break-in. There's a lot of cover your own ass, floppy legalese language going on here with this after allegedly attempting a break-in. The incident occurred around 5 a.m. in a residence on Orkney Way in the St. Andrews County Club neighborhood, just half a mile from Horton's own home. Douglas County Sheriff Tim Pounds explained that deputies were called to the scene in response to a burglary. According to their investigation, Horton had entered the home, so that's not an attempted break-in. He was in. Had entered the home when the homeowner, acting in self-defense, fired at him. Horton was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators believe the homeowner was justified in using their firearm. Damn right he was. Citing self-defense as the main factor. Further complicating the situation, authorities revealed that Horton may have been experiencing a mental health episode or under the influence of drugs at the time of the break-in attempt. Horton lived nearby, and it is unclear what may have led to this tragic incident. Now, this story says that he was an off-duty cop. This is the part that I want to highlight, right? Because without this information, what you've got here is, you know, a bad guy broke into a house and he got what was coming to him. And I'm good with that. DRT, rock and roll. But the Atlanta Police Department, where Horton served since 2015, confirmed that he was off duty at the time of the incident. And apparently, this guy was, here it is, just days before his death, Horton had been honored as Officer of the Year at a local community event. Now, there's something in there that I want y'all to pay attention to that they're not saying. They're saying that he's off duty. They're saying that he was given an award for being the Officer of the Year just days before. They're saying that he had mental health problems, serious mental health problems, which, coupled with apparently known drug addiction problems, were likely at least contributing factors to his bizarre behavior, that being that he's a police officer who broke into someone's house in the middle of the night. What are they not saying here? Nowhere in here does it say that this guy had been relieved of duty, was on extended leave of absence. No, all of the information we have says that this guy was an active duty police officer, and by off duty, it's just not his time to be at work. He could have had a shift starting at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning that he was planning on heading to after he committed this burglary. Now, I'll grant there is a teeny little sliver, but I expect this would have been included in the story, of a possibility that what really happened is this was an investigator and the homeowner is a suspect, and this investigator has watched way too many detective cop shows and decided he was just going to sneak in that house without a warrant and try to find some evidence. Okay, there's a teeny little sliver of a possibility that that's what's going on, but I doubt it. I doubt it intensely, because there's a reason we watch shows like that. They show us bad cops and desperate cops. So I'm being told in this article that this guy has mental issues and a drug abuse problem, and he's still an Atlanta cop. Well, okay, in fairness, he's not an Atlanta cop anymore. So there's that. But how in the hell, if this guy has a drug abuse problem and documented known mental health episode problems, is he still wearing a badge at all? At best, this story should read former police officer, former detective, who resigned or was terminated in shame over his mental illness and drug abuse, right? Now, I'm not saying that a person should be ashamed if they have mental illness, but you should absolutely not be a police officer. That's insane. So, that's 2 dark stories that I wanted to cover. I've got one more this morning that I want to cover before I start loading kids in the vehicle to drive for the rest of the morning. Oh my God, it's so far away. But and this is a good news story. This should hopefully bring all our blood pressures down and make your heart feel good. Federal judge rules New York's private property gun ban is unconstitutional. So basically, as soon as the Bruin case came through, as soon as we saw the Bruin case come through, New York and several other states for that matter, did all these knee-jerk reaction emergency. Okay, well, let's try and figure out some kind of other way we can take their guns away. One of those was New York basically put in a law. Here, let me read the article to you. Second Amendment activists secured another win against New York State's stringent gun control laws. On Thursday, a federal judge ruled that the state's ban on carrying concealed firearms on private property, unless expressly allowed by the owner, violated constitutional rights. So basically, right after Bruin, New York tried to pass this law where if you were a licensed concealed carrier in the state of New York, that you could not carry your firearm into a private business or any private property which was accessible, even if it was accessible to the public, unless the private property owner explicitly displayed some sort of a sign or explicitly said the words to you that you are permitted to concealed carry on this private property. Okay. Shall not be infringed. I've said it before, and I'll say it 1,000 more times. If a law has the word gun in it, that law must be struck down. If a law mentions firearms, that law is unconstitutional. I don't care if it's a law that says because everybody should have a gun, the government's going to pay for your ammo. As much as I would enjoy that, it's unconstitutional because it is an infringement. It exists at the fringe. It is periphery to. It is an adornment to the right to keep and bear arms. No, any law that includes the word gun, firearm, arms, weapon, any law that in any way restricts your ability to acquire, keep, maintain, carry, or use a firearm is unlawful. Well, Chris, whoa. But you can't use guns for murder. That's right. You also can't use screwdrivers for murder or cars for murder. That's illegal. What's illegal? Shooting somebody with a gun to murder them is not the thing that's illegal. The murdering them is the illegal. Right? If I was to duct tape a propane can to somebody and put a fuse on the son of a bitch, that would be a crime. That would be murder. What you murdered him with is irrelevant. So, New York thought they were going to be cute and say, you can't carry your gun unless people tell you it's okay. Yeah, well, the federal rules says, shit up your nose, New York. So, U.S. District Court Judge John Sinatra Jr., he did it his way, declared that New York's restriction on licensed gun owners carrying firearms in public spaces that are privately owned is unconstitutional. He didn't really declare it so much as he reminded these godless, lawless sons of whores that you can keep your hands off my guns. This decision comes in response to New York's Concealed Carry Improvement Act. On the title alone, I can tell you the entire law is unconstitutional, which was signed into law by Governor Kathy Hochul. The governor with a Chinese spy in July of 2022. Like I said, they knocked this thing out as soon as Bruin happened to try and steal you of your safety. Right? The act was passed after the Supreme Court declared New York's previous concealed carry law unconstitutional. Despite this, New York's updated law included restrictions that made it illegal to carry firearms on all private property unless a sign or explicit consent was given. Judge Sinatra emphasized that while private property owners can choose to ban firearms, the state does not have the authority to impose such a blanket prohibition. The judge highlighted that any regulations on firearms must align with historical legal traditions. In his ruling, Sinatra wrote that New York's attempt to regulate this aspect failed to meet those standards. So the judge still says that if you're a private property owner, you can ban firearms. And I agree with that. That's fine, right? If you want to tell me I can't carry my firearm in your home, that's fine. I won't be there for Thanksgiving. If you want to tell me that I can't carry my firearm in your privately owned business, well, that's fine. I'm sure there's a rational, constitutional, abiding American patriot that would love to have my money, and they'll get it because you will not. If you put up a soft target sign, right, and any sign that says no firearms, no weapons, et cetera. Now, I'll be a little fair. I've seen McDonald's. I've seen various businesses that'll have the sign up that says no weapons on this property or whatever. And okay, I'm out driving. It's been a long day. I got to pee and I want a cup of coffee. I'll just use the bathroom and buy a cup of coffee at that McDonald's. And I'll be wearing my firearm when I do it. I know. I've seen me do it. Because another thing that's true about those signs is they do not carry the force of law. Not by themselves. Okay? So the way that works, if you are seen, if you're caught by a legal representative of the property carrying the firearm, and they don't want you carrying a firearm, they can ask you to leave. At this point, if you refuse to leave, now you're trespassing. That's how the prohibition works. And I'm absolutely great with that. Right? If you show up on my property and you've got a sign that says Harris Walls on it, I will politely ask you to leave. Once. And then I will call the police and tell them I have a trespasser. And then we will see what happens, because we've only got 3 cops in this whole county, and I believe they're busy. So, Tommy Gunn asks, I'm ignorant. How would they find out? Pat down every patron that enters the property? That's a good question. Basically, it really is that simple. They don't know. Who's going to know? They're never going to know. They don't know, right? In Georgia, the law on that is a lot more lenient, obviously. Basically, unless you're a federal building like a post office, which, you know, the ban on your carrying your firearm into the post office or other government buildings is also unconstitutional. Just so I'm clear, that is a violation of the law. If you're arrested for wearing your firearm while you're in a post, you know, let's say you're wearing your gun because you're a rational human being and it's a day that ends in Y, and you run into the post office to mail a letter, you know, run out and get back in your truck and drive away to do whatever it is you're going to do. But somewhere in the middle of that, a police officer notices that you're wearing your firearm in the post office. He will arrest you for wearing your firearm in the post office. And the law, as it stands right now, says that that's okay, says that that's what's supposed to happen, except that the Constitution is very clear that what that officer has just done by arresting you for having a firearm on, under any circumstances at all, I don't care if you're a felon smoking methamphetamine in the courthouse and the thing they arrest you for is wearing the firearm. Let me be very clear. The Second Amendment does not use any wiggle words. It says, shall not be infringed. So, I mean, lock them up for I was about to say lock them up for the meth, but that's an unconstitutional law too. But the fact that what the officer will be engaged in is crime is quite beside the point of the fact that he'll do it anyway. That's another thing that we can never forget, is that our government is more than happy to commit crimes against us. Joe Biden has said as much explicitly on more than one occasion, as has Kamala Harris. They're more than happy to commit crimes against you. In fact, they prefer it. That's what it means to be a Democrat, is they prefer the commission of crimes against citizens over liberty and prosperity. Waller, I gotta just get you on the show. Let's talk soon. We'll do that. And but I'm gonna go ahead and put a pin in it there. It is the Highland Games weekend. Highland Games at Stone Mountain. If y'all are nearby or interested, go. It'll be a big old time. If you haven't done the Highland Games before, you don't really know what it's about, I would not go today. Today is kind of spinning up, and you know it's kind of us. But tomorrow, all day Saturday, there's the shepherd events. There's falconers out there showing about how they do their birds. You know, they'll be walking around with a big glove and the bird on on the arm and all that, and it's great. Caber tossing, which is a caber is a telephone pole. It's big, scary, hairy men throwing telephone poles competitively. Likewise, the hammer toss, the sheaf toss. It's all about getting warfighters over the wall to kill the English. Rah! Because it's the Scottish Highland Games. So we'll be out there all weekend. I'll be in my kilt and my good socks. And it'll be a hell of a lot of fun. So thanks for watching this morning, guys. Y'all be safe out there. Don't drive drunk. Don't fry bacon naked. And remember, the earlier you vote, the less likely you are to have your vote stolen by a Democrat or a criminal alien. But I repeat myself. Be safe. We love you. See you Monday.